My name is Richard Adkins. For 30 odd years, I was curator of the Hollywood Heritage Museum. I'm the author of a book called Adrian, American Designer, Hollywood Original. Adrian is one of the leading designers of Hollywood costume in the first half of the 20th century, from being the primary costume designer at MGM Studios starting in 1928 and running through 1941, when he left to create his own salon. MGM prided itself on having, for most of the 1930s, the top box office stars. The most notable film that Adrian worked on would of course be Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz, because of its color and because of the imagination of the costumes, is still the film that he's most known for, not only for the creativeness of the costumes, but because the ruby slippers are now the most valuable artifact in film history. Adrian's career began with a small film studio in New York in 1922. He then went to work for Rudolph Valentino's film company in 1924. That brought him to Hollywood. After Valentino passed away, he went to work for the Cecil B. DeMille company. But when DeMille left his own company and went to MGM for a 3-picture deal, he took Adrian with him. Because MGM was essentially the most successful studio of the 1930s and going into the 40s and 50s, he designed initially for all of the top MGM leading ladies, Norma Shearer, Marion Davies, but primarily Greta Garbo. Later on, Jean Harlow would be added to that number, as well as Jeanette MacDonald, Hedy Lamarr, Lana Turner. The fame of the performers, combined with MGM's celebrity and icon-creating personnel, which included Adrian, these were women that became the fashion and style leaders of the 1930s. One of Adrian's favorite books as a child was the L. Frank Baum Wizard of Oz series. When MGM obtained the property, Adrian was very excited. MGM's cameramen were not always experienced in Technicolor, because Technicolor was still kind of new and very expensive. When you're designing for a black and white film registers a larger, a wider gray scale. When you design in Technicolor and color at all, you really have to be more careful with not only how it looks on the actress, but the emotional impact of that specific color. As film progressed into the late 1930s, the list of people that needed to approve a costume increased significantly. It began to be the Technicolor consultant, the lighting director, and many other people. So a lot of precautions were taken on the preparations for Wizard of Oz. In order to please the art director and the studio and the Technicolor consultants, Adrian had to sketch every costume. Then they would make photographic tests of the sketches. Then they would dye the fabric. Then they would make tests of the fabric, and then they would complete the costume. So it was a very labor-intensive assignment. It takes a very different kind of skill to be able to design in Technicolor.
When Law resurrected Adrian's legacy by placing that couture Adrian dress onto Ariana, it wasn't only vintage, it was vintage with vision. He chose something from Adrian's own couture collection, which happened after the movie. He was celebrating Adrian's artistry, the man who was tied to the original film, but was an artist, a brilliant artist in his own right.
Law is the contemporary version of Adrian. As designers, we kind of walk away after we've designed the entire movie, and then Law picks it up, and then he paints the canvas, and then we keep going. So his collaboration with Ariana is actually very extremely important, and I do believe Adrian would be proud.
Adrian followed the pattern of conventional couturiers, in which he did hat designing, shoe designing, as well as coats and dresses and gowns, but he also introduced a fragrance line, and he had a menswear line. So he was more like the complete designers of nowadays and less like the old-fashioned Hollywood designers.
The intersection between styling and costume design, understanding your client, is important. I think Law has done a very good job of that. He stayed true to his own brand, and he's also stayed true to Adrian and paying homage to Adrian. When Ariana steps on the red carpet in a vintage Adrian dress, styled by Law Roach, that moment is going to be monumental. If I had to take a guess and speak for my friend, it's a careful moment. Ariana hopefully will feel the presence of Adrian and the spiritual aspect and importance and weight of bringing that design back to life. Not a recreation, the actual thing. And I hope it's received as such and it becomes full circle for everyone.